Libra, those who despised you will regret it. God has already begun to act. Libra, there's a belief that almost everyone who has been rejected carries without knowing it. The belief that if they had done something differently, if they had been a little more, a little less, a little more precise in just the right measure, the rejection wouldn't have happened. As if the problem were a miscalibration on their part. As if there were a version of them that would have been enough for that person to truly recognize them. What if that's not true? What if the contempt you carried didn't stem from any failing of yours, but from the other person's inability to uphold what you represent? Because Libra isn't despised for little things. Libra is despised for the excess of what it possesses, something others can't bear to see up close. For its presence that balances what no one else can, for its ability to perceive nuances that most people will never see. And those who can't have that, those who feel their own emptiness growing near someone like that, tend to make the only move that brings relief: to diminish. But there's something more that this story hasn't told yet, something about what happens when Libra finally stops carrying that weight. About the movement that God makes precisely in the silence that opens up afterward. By the end of this video, you'll understand why those who despised you will regret it, and you'll understand that this regret won't come in the way you imagine. Those who despise Libra almost never do so because Libra has failed them. In the vast majority of cases, those who despise Libra do so because they cannot bear to be near someone who has what they will never have. Think of a dirty window. Very dirty. The kind of window that distorts everything that passes through it. The colors are wrong, the shapes are crooked. What is clear seems blurry. When you look through the dirty window, you don't see the landscape. You see what the dirt on the glass projects onto it. Disdain works like this. Those who direct it at Libra aren't truly seeing Libra. They're seeing the reflection in their own dirty glass, the unacknowledged envy, the nameless insecurity, the discomfort of being near someone who naturally balances what they've never been able to balance within themselves. And because it's unbearable to acknowledge this, they name the discomfort in another way. They call what is, in fact, difference a flaw. They call what is, in fact, self-knowledge, arrogance. They call what is, in fact, discernment, coldness. But then comes the troubling question. Was the contempt directed at the other person? Was it directed at the dirty window and not beneath the surface? That which can no longer be easily fixed. Libra knows this dampness, this kind of wear and tear that she can't name, but that she feels in her body when she thinks about certain relationships, certain periods of life. And so the question remains, what now? What does Libra do with the realization that she was emotionally funding those who were belittling her? It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign to a life of purpose arrived at a time when the understanding already existed, but the next step wasn't yet clear. It addresses precisely what Libra rarely finds: the difference between real harmony and performative harmony, between balancing because you want to and balancing because you're afraid of what will happen if you stop. For Libra, this isn't philosophy. It's the distinction that changes the quality of every choice that comes after. You are now at a point of recognition. Something that was blurry has begun to take shape, and it is precisely in these moments, before routine covers everything back, that action makes a difference. Not tomorrow. Now, while this is still present within you. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. And before we continue, leave this question in the comments. What was the relationship where you realized only after a long time that you were adjusting a scale that someone was holding crooked on purpose? Are you still trying to balance that scale, or have you let go? Libra pays with what it has most of: presence, harmony, time, in a cycle that it itself sustains without realizing it. Recognizing this pattern is the first step, but knowing how to let go without losing oneself is where most people get stuck. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign Towards a Life of Purpose, was created for this moment. It specifically addresses the nature of Libra, the tendency to hold on to what doesn't reciprocate, and the concrete path to finding true balance. Not the balance Libra offers to others, but the balance Libra owes to itself. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. Because there comes a precise moment when Libra realizes she believed in something that was never said aloud. It wasn't a conscious decision. It wasn't a thought she had and approved. It was something that settled in on the edges, in small gestures of withdrawal, in the excuses she fabricated for inexcusable behaviors, in the silences she learned to accept as an answer. At some point, without realizing it, Libra began to behave as if she deserved to occupy less space, as if the harmony she needed to guarantee was the harmony of the other person, not her own. And the clearest sign of this isn't in the big moments, it's in the small ones. In the way she rephrased what she was going to say before saying it, so as not to bother anyone. In the way she swallowed certain reactions because she didn't want to seem difficult. In the pattern of always placing the weight of the relationship on herself, as if balance were exclusively her responsibility. Imagine a piece of clothing that no longer fits. It's too tight in the shoulders, it pulls here, it leaves marks there. But you keep wearing it because you've gotten used to the feeling of it being too tight. Because at some point you stopped asking if it fit and started asking how to adjust yourself inside it. Libra understands this kind of adaptation. The difference is that the clothing they need to take off isn't made of fabric. Libra has a pattern that few can name from the outside, because from the outside it just looks like diplomacy. It looks like tact. It looks like social elegance. But inside, Libra knows what it is. It's a constant negotiation with itself about how much of itself it can show without throwing the surrounding environment off balance. It's an automatic calibration that happens so quickly that Libra doesn't even realize it's doing it anymore. It simply enters a room and begins to sense where the tensions are, where the breaking points are, what needs to be smoothed over for everything to work. And for a long time, this ability was what brought her closest to people who didn't deserve that closeness. Because those who create chaos, those who operate in imbalance, those who feed on the instability of the environment, are naturally attracted to those who have the ability to neutralize that chaos. Libra doesn't realize she's being used as a buffer. She realizes she's helping, and that's enough for her to stay, until it isn't anymore. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that Libra experiences, one that doesn't appear in emotion dictionaries. It's not anger, it's not sadness, it's a kind of inner transparency, the feeling that they've spent so much time molding their own outline to fit into other people's space that they no longer know exactly what their true outline is. Like a piece of paper that's been folded for too long, and when you try to unfold it, still shows the creases, even though the paper is technically open. It is at this point that contempt appears as the cruelest and at the same time most honest moment of the entire relationship. Because contempt dismantles the illusion that there was something to balance. It shows that while Libra was trying to calibrate, the other party never intended to rebalance. It was never an encounter of two people trying to build something together. It was one person building and the other consuming, silently, methodically, and with the convenient absence of any recognition of what was being consumed. And Libra needs to hear this head on, not as judgment, not as punishment, but as truth, that she stayed, that she chose to stay repeatedly, with the information she had available, within the logic that made sense to her at that moment. and that this choice was not weakness. It was misdirected loyalty, a real virtue applied in a place that was not worthy of her. This distinction matters, because Libra will carry the weight of the experience in different ways, depending on how it understands it. If it understands that it stayed because it was weak, it will continue to diminish itself internally, even after the external situation has changed. If it understands that it stayed because it had a genuine capacity to sustain difficult connections, and that this capacity is not to blame for being wasted on the wrong bond, it emerges different, more whole, with its virtue intact, but with sharp discernment about where that virtue deserves to be placed. Libras don't learn not to love. They learn to recognize early on who isn't willing to reciprocate. And that's a wisdom that no disappointment can take away. It can only give. And when Libra finally begins to let go, when they stop apologizing for the space they occupy, stop rephrasing before speaking, stop carrying the weight of the entire relationship on their own shoulders, something strange happens. It's not immediate liberation. It's a different kind of silence, an emptiness that feels uncomfortable at first, because Libra is so used to the noise of constant adjustment that silence feels wrong. But it is precisely in this silence that something begins to move. Not with noise, not with announcements, with the silent precision of someone planting in land that has finally stopped being trodden on. A seed doesn't germinate while someone walks on it. It waits for the weight to lift, for the soil to breathe, for the moisture to find its way, and then, without warning, something begins to rise. The plan that God has for Libra doesn't operate on the logic of revenge. It doesn't function like a court where the despiser is summoned and condemned. It works like a silent reorganization of the field, and Libra can only feel this reorganization when it stops using all its energy trying to balance what cannot be balanced. Because God doesn't reorganize the chaos around Libra while Libra is still within the chaos, trying to manage it. He reorganizes it when she leaves. She doesn't run away. She leaves, with the dignity of someone who understands that some structures weren't built to support her, and that insisting on them isn't loyalty, it's a waste. And what does this reorganization look like in practice? It doesn't look like magic. It looks like architectural adjustment. Imagine an architect entering a completely messy room. He doesn't start with the furniture. He doesn't rearrange the shelves or move the pictures. He goes straight to the beams, to the structure that supports everything, because he knows that if the structure is right, the furniture will naturally find its place. If the structure is wrong, no matter how many times you rearrange the furniture, the room will still look messy. God acts in Libra like that architect. He goes to the beams first. He closes doors that needed to close, not dramatically, but in such a way that the very movement of life closes them, as if there simply wasn't room for them to remain open. He opens what was stuck. He repositions people, circumstances, encounters, with the precision of someone who knows Libra's original blueprint better than Libra itself knows it. And who despised Libra? Where does it fit into this reorganization? God rearranges the field without warning, without asking for an audience. He goes to the beams before moving the furniture. But this movement only happens when Libra stops using all its energy trying to manage what wasn't meant to be managed by them. And understanding how to inhabit this space of release without collapsing, without getting lost, requires more than just willpower. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose fits precisely into this internal architecture. It shows Libra how to trust the process of reorganization without needing to control every detail of it, how to live the interval between letting go and seeing what comes without the emptiness becoming fear. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. This is the part that most bothers those who expected this story to end with punishment. Because those who despise Libra are not summoned to receive anything. There is no scene of reckoning. There is no moment in which they are confronted with the magnitude of what they did. What happens is different, and in a way it is much more definitive. They are left behind. They are not expelled. They are not punished. They simply stay where they are while Libra moves on. And when they look to the side, or ahead, or in any direction where Libra was before, it is no longer there, not in the way it was. The version of Libra they knew, the one that adjusted, that recalibrated, that stayed even when it should have left, that version has passed. And regret doesn't come like lightning. It comes like a vision. Like when you're standing somewhere and you notice on the horizon something you had but didn't recognize while you had it. Think of someone who threw away an object without understanding what it was. Perhaps out of carelessness, perhaps out of arrogance, perhaps because at the time it seemed worthless, and who only understands its value when they see the same object in a shop window, framed, out of reach, with a price tag they now know they can't afford. Those who disregarded Libra will have this moment, not necessarily with drama, not necessarily with tears, but with that deep, dull feeling of having wasted something real, something that won't come back, something that, if I had known what it was, I would never have let go. They will see from afar what they wasted, and Libra at that moment will be too busy living what they always deserved to look back. But reaching that place of full presence without the weight of what's left behind doesn't happen automatically after the turning point. The divine path that guides your zodiac sign towards a life of purpose is a guide to what comes after. It shows how Libra receives what restoration brings without the reflex of shrinking, without the habit of diminishing what comes so that the other doesn't feel small. It shows how it fully occupies the space that has always been its own. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey toward the clarity and genius you deserve. And Libra, at this moment, what is she feeling? It's not victory. It's not that raw satisfaction of seeing your opponent fall. It's something quieter, deeper. It's the recognition that what she carried with such weight, the contempt, the cycle of adjustment, the years of trying to balance what should never have been hers to balance. All of that was the beginning of something she didn't yet know how to name while she was living. Disdain was the catalyst. Not the enemy, not the trauma, not the permanent scar, but the catalyst, the spark that ignited the restoration process without either party knowing that this was what was happening. The one who despised her believed they were discarding her. Unknowingly, they were releasing her, freeing Libra from a cycle she would never have abandoned on her own. Because Libra doesn't abandon, she can't. So sometimes life finds a way to break the bond on its own. On one side, someone who despises without understanding the value of what they have. On the other, Libra, who finally stops supporting what didn't deserve to be supported. And the fire that seems to destroy the forest. It doesn't destroy, it cleans. It burns what was dead on top, what was dry, what was taking up space without nourishing anything. And when it's over, the soil that remains is exactly the right soil for what comes next. More fertile than it was before, with the memory of the fire, but ready for green. Libra didn't emerge from this as a victim who survived. She emerged as someone who was tested by something real and discovered, in the process, that she had far more structure than she imagined, that the balance she sought in others had been available within herself her whole life, that the harmony she generously offered to relationships that didn't deserve it was, in fact, the clearest sign of who she is and who she always was. God doesn't begin to act in Libra when the situation gets better. He acts when Libra finally stops carrying what wasn't meant to be theirs. And when that happens, when their hands are free, when the weight is lifted, When the silence ceases to be uncomfortable and becomes a breath of fresh air, that's when the movement begins, not with a bang, with the gentle precision of someone who knows exactly what they're doing. And Libra discovers that what seemed like the end was, in fact, the starting point of everything she always deserved.